On the shores of the Ionian Sea is an island called Scorpius. This island, and everything on it, once belonged to a very rich man. One day, he told the island's priest to prepare his chapel for an unexpected wedding.
The 5-year widowhood of Jacqueline Kennedy is about to end in a way that's caught the whole world by surprise. We look at the two people whose private lives have been public property for so long.
The news made headlines everywhere. The world's press came to Scorpius and kept on coming. They had been tipped off that Jackie Kennedy was on the yacht Christina. The crew fended them off, but the paparazzi wanted pictures.
I was alone standing on the deck of Christina, and the first person who appeared was the bride herself. So I said, Mrs. Jackie, doesn't this remind you of the Spanish Armada?
The woman who was married to the most powerful statesman in the world has now chosen to marry one of the richest men in the world.
Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy, America's fairy tale princess, was about to become Jackie O, wife of the shipping tycoon, Aristotle Onassis. One headline screamed, "Jackie, why?"
When Onassis announced that he was marrying Jackie, there was great disappointment by the great American public, saying she's marrying the Beauty and the Beast and all those cliches. As far as I'm concerned, Onassis never hid the fact that he liked to obtain expensive objects. He had Fabergés, he had yachts, planes, he bought divas. Why not the most famous widow in the world?
Her reputation took a knock. Some said she married for money. Some said he married her to buy himself much-needed respectability.
Nina McCory in Paris. I believe you know the island where they have their little summer place with 200 servants.
I know Ωνάσης many, many years.
What sort of man is he? How would you describe him?
He's a pirate.
A pirate?
A pirate.
I see.
Yes,
26 years later, Konstantin Haritakis pays a visit to Onassis' favorite sister, Kalliroi. She tells him she's feeling upset about Jackie, who passed away the day before. They both feel hurt by the way the press covered Jackie's death. Konstantin cannot understand how the many obituaries and tributes to Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis could have all but ignored the man she married.
It was impossible after meeting Onassis, Aristo, not to fall in love with him. I love that man.
I caress his photograph, says Kalliroi.
All the women were falling in love. He was not a handsome man. He was rather short, but he had wonderful eyes. And you could see in his eyes all the warmth of his soul.
19 years later, both bride and groom are dead. Aristotle's Socrates Onassis was born probably in 1906, and not in Greece, but in Turkey. His father was a tobacco trader who became head of the stock exchange in Smyrna.
My father was a rather wealthy man, successful as a second generation. We were doing very well, but the First World War finished up with all that. Half of the family was slaughtered.
In 1922, the Turks began a ruthless ethnic cleansing. The Greeks who had lived in Asia Minor since the age of Homer were driven from their villages. The government announced that it was no longer a capital offense to kill a Christian. Hot on their heels came the Turkish army. When the army entered Smyrna, it put the city to sword and fire. As the Onassis family fled in small boats, a Turkish soldier tried to drag away his sister, and a much-loved cousin disappeared.
The horror of Smyrna. A young boy in a small boat, seeing the slaughter, seeing this horror around him. And I think that this was really the fact who changed the whole life of Onassis.
The Onassis family in Smyrna suddenly met with a disaster. His uncle Alexander was hanged by the Turks. When they reached Greece, they were paupers. They lost all their money.
No longer a rich man's son, Onassis found himself on the breadline.
I had just finished the high school, and I was going to come to Oxford. Instead of going to Oxford, I had everything prepared, clothes and so on. I found myself in steerage immigrating to the Argentine.
Onassis disembarked with barely $100 in his pocket. Over the next few years, he was going to do rather well in Buenos Aires.
He reached Argentina together with his cousin Nicholas Cornelides. They were extremely poor at the time. They had to share the same room, one bed. One had to work in the daytime, and the other had to work in the nighttime, because they couldn't stay together in that little room on the same bed and sleep together. So Onassis has chosen to work night shifts in a telephone company.
Working nights allowed Onassis to spend his days at a fancy yacht club, meeting the right people. There wasn't much work on the midnight shift, so Onassis practiced his foreign languages by listening in on international phone conversations. And this was how he spotted his first big business opportunity. In Argentina, as elsewhere, women were swooning over the smoldering good looks of a film star called Rudolph Valentino. Valentino's hit movies The Sheik and its sequel, The Son of the Sheik, had caused a mania for everything to do with the exotic Middle East. Onassis found a way to cash in on the craze. What gave him the idea was Valentino's way with a cigarette. So Onassis created his own brand of cigarette. He imported Turkish tobacco and targeted the female market. He began to meet with success.
And that is the source of his first money. And it's not a coincidence that he has chosen tobacco as the commodity to trade in. His father worked in this field.
By his mid-20s, Onassis had made his first million.
Onassis started on the tobacco business, as you know, and then having the intuition towards shipping. As a Greek, he turned to the shipping business. Greeks, since many thousand years ago, they were attached with the sea and attracted by the sea.